Welcome to the Life in Red podcast. This is a way of life that emphasizes positive sexuality, self-love, and confidence. On this journey, red is now your new color. Be courageous. Be passionate. Be sexy. And never stop living your best red life. So now I have one question for you. Are you ready to live your life in red? To join us on this journey, like and subscribe below. Hello, and welcome to the Life in Red podcast. I am Brittany, your host, and today we have Dr. Peter Kanaris, who is an award-winning psychologist and a diplomat into sex therapy. His specialties go all the way to cyber infidelity, to sex addiction, and more. Because most therapists, psychologists, they do a lot of things. So I'm excited to talk to him today. Thank you so much, Dr. Peter, for being on today.
Thank you for having me, Brittany. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yes, this is great. So tell me, what got you into this field?
It's a very interesting and long story. I'll give you the short version of it.
Fair enough.
I was training, doing a fellowship in my training as a psychologist
Mm-hmm.
in New York City. And the particular, the Albert Ellis Institute at the time where I was training was offering a specialty supervision in sex therapy. So I decided that was interesting. I wanted to participate in it. Little did I know it was going to lead me to a specialization in my field that I followed for many years after that. But I'm so thankful and grateful for that moment that it led me on this path.
That's cool. So when you started and you chose that field, I'm sure it was stimulating getting into all the weeds of how everything's linked to our sexual nature.
Yes. And that's that was one of the things that I came to discover, that many mental health professionals were trained in so many aspects of psychology and will
Right.
affect us as people. In our basic training, where sex fits into all of that is typically not included. So you really need specialization in that regard, and it opened up just a different lens on looking at individuals and looking at relationships and seeing what an important aspect of life sex plays.
Right. And I could say in past relationships, psychology, I'm not a doctor, not a certified therapist, but psychology is one of my addictions. And I would say a lot of the issues with every relationship stemmed from sex and something to do with past trauma that led to sex issues, just everything linked to sex. So when I got hired for this job, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
To me, it's one of the most stimulating and rewarding things to talk about, not just for pleasure, which is great,
Yeah.
but it really helps people healing these woundings. And we were going to talk about today a little bit about something that's controversial, and I think you would agree, is sex addiction. And I think there's this stigma of what is sex addiction? People think they know, but where are we at in psychology today around sex addiction?
Yeah, it is an area in psychology and in sex therapy that is hotly debated. And there are different camps and different ways of looking at the issue of sex, and when sexuality seems to be excessive or out of control.
Right.
My particular view of it, all right, is I don't follow, while I respect people that are following a sex addiction model in their lives, and that often will mean that in addition to sex addiction treatment, they'll attend 12-step groups, not unlike AA or NA or those types
Right.
of groups for support. And I will certainly support that. the model that I follow is really one more of what I call problematic sexual behavior or out of control sexual behavior. And that's essentially when sex becomes a problem in your life.
I like that.
When it now is, there are some people that have very high sex drives, and they wind up getting they can get pathologized in relationships where, okay, well, you know what, you have such a strong sexual appetite, you must be a sex addict. Okay,
Yes.
you must have a problem. And yeah, maybe it needs to be worked out with a particular partner,
Right.
to be able to be understood and have it incorporated in a relationship in a constructive fashion. But pathologizing it in that way and say, well, you're a sex addict, I find to be very often, shaming, hurtful, and counterproductive.
I love
So
that.
my view of it is I'm more in the camp of problematic, or can become problematic
Dr.
or out of
Peter
control, where it
Kanaris.
feels out of control to the person. And that's, you've got to sort of define it for yourself rather than be defined by someone else, where they're kind of pointing the finger and throwing a
Mm.
label at you. You've got to really assess for yourself: is am I okay with my sexual desire and my level of drive, or do I find it interfering in functional aspects of my life?
Yes, and this is everything you're saying is like candy because I love how you, Dr. Peter, you have taken something and made it less judgmental. You've made it more personalized, and you are asking each individual, it sounds like to me, to be accountable for your life. The question is this a problem? Is this a problem for your life? Yes or no? If you're and when it becomes compulsive, it may seem compulsive. Is it hurting your relationships? Are you not getting your work done? Are you distracted? What I love though is the idea of not pathologizing things anymore, because I was talking to you about this, that I was still pathologizing myself. And if you don't know what that means, viewers, that's fine. It's where we're trying to get to the root of the kink, the root of the behavior. Why do you want your booty spanked? I've been a bad girl. Well, daddy didn't love me.
Yeah.
We're not doing that anymore. It's okay.
Yes, that's exactly correct. And we've entered a time, going back to the original training that I had when we were talking about, and I've been around long enough where I've seen the evolution of the field. Okay,
Mm,
I'll often talk about it as 20th century views of sex, 20th century sex therapy, and 21st
right.
century. Okay, and of course, what you find that dividing point. Okay, what happened? Well, as we entered toward the 21st century, well, now we have the internet. Okay, where
Yeah.
before we were living in an analog world, we entered the digital world in the 21st century, and also in terms of medical interventions, Viagra and the like. These were developed
Right.
at the very end of the last century. So it's a different world sexually, and that also relates to where we find acceptance, what the judgments were in those days. I like to think we're moving past some of the counterproductive and again that word pathologizing of what really is a range of variance of sexual interest and sexual behavior. All right, and
Yeah.
it's so important.
It is. And if people want to challenge this, you're more than welcome to. But this is where I challenge some of my friends in the field. I'm like, hey, is perspective not infinite based on each individual? Your perspective of right and wrong, and my perspective of what's normal. Like in France, it's normal to be nude. It's not
Yeah.
taboo. It's not causing any kind of trauma to children to see their parents walk around naked, whereas in the US, it's not normal. It
Yes.
could cause, so it's perspective.
Yes.
And these taboo things are only taboo. And I know a lot of my kink friends wouldn't like it if it became mainstream. It wouldn't be taboo anymore. But, it only is because it's hidden.
Yes.
And if it was out and about, people are getting spankings everywhere, then it wouldn't be taboo. The perspective would be, it's missionary Sally now,
Right.
you know?
Right. And also, there's that paradox with the taboo. In some respects, it is inhibiting, shaming, etc. Okay, but it also adds excitement. When there are taboo aspects to sex, that's sort of one of the turn-ons that people will experience.
Right. And it's like for me, when I've dove into why do I like this? And I'm that kind of nerd. I'm like, why do I like this? And you helped me with our introductory conversation because you challenged my mind, Dr. Peter. I was like, okay, if I don't pathologize this any longer, that I like the exciting things, even if I healed all of my traumas,
Yes.
I still want the stimulation. I still like the excitement. It
Yes.
still exists. But if it became mainstream, no longer would I maybe want this. It's because I'm looking for the excitement, the stimulation, the freedom, the
Yes.
Braveheart freedom
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do what I want.
Now, Brittany, underline that point that you're making, because it's something that is so easily missed by people in general, and frankly, for other professionals don't get it. That they will look at the root of a sexual interest as being based in trauma, or being based in some kind of developmental experience that was difficult, or
Yeah,
shaming in a particular way. And it may or may not
right.
have an influence on a sexual preference, a kink, a sexual taste, whatever it might be. And then that sense is, well, okay, even as I deal successfully with the developmental issue, I still like this. I still have this particular interest. Is that bad? Does that remain a marker of my
This,
pathology,
the scarlet letter.
scarlet letter, the scarlet letter in that way, and being
Right.
able to say, you know what, I can make that kind of personal progress, and I can heal, and I could grow beyond my developmental experiences, and still enjoy particular sexual behavior, sexual interests, kinks, etc. And it doesn't have to mean anything negative.
Well, yeah, it's just like people who have iron deficiency and chew on ice.
Hmm.
Okay, so I'm just using this as an example because it used to be me. And I would go to the racetrack gas station, get my little ice and chew on it, chipped a tooth. Not worth it, guys. And the cost. But the thing is I don't go, I'm a bad person because I'm chewing on ice. I don't, it's not, it's so normal. You see people doing it all the time, crunching ice.
Mhm.
You see, it's the perspective, it's the normalcy of the cultural beliefs and the acceptance for survival because I want to be cool,
Yes.
so I can survive in the wolf pack that's judging me.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, what it was so crazy, Dr. Peter, is the people who stand out, I've noticed, the people who go against the grain and are themselves, they seem to be the leaders of the pack, if you will, if we have to have a hierarchy. They seem to be the ones that are free thinking. They're not trying to be leaders. They're not trying to influence, but they are the most influential, finding that freedom in that. I do this. I accept it. Okay, I have a problem with this sexual behavior. It's affecting my marriage. I'm going to take accountability for that. They seem to they have their power.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that you're alluding to there is overcoming shame.
Yes.
Because I'll often do the visual, if I'm talking with a patient or talking with anyone, of, what does shame look like? Well, shame looks like this. I'm covering up. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm out there, I'm exposed, and I'm ashamed maybe of my body or some aspect of myself. So what does that do? It drives us underground.
Yeah.
It drives us away from the light. I don't want you to see me. I don't want you to know me. I am not even sure I want to know myself, So
Right.
it's that kind of wrapping up, and then sometimes even culturally it becomes vested as we have to guard the shame. So we'll put a lot of judgments and rules and restrictions on what's acceptable and what's not.
Right. And that gets us into, if you don't mind, what you just said around shame, which Brene Brown, I don't know if you're familiar with Brene, she does a lot of studies on the shame as well. I mean, and it gets us into technology. And that's where we're headed. We're not like ring, ring, ring. Hello, 1-800. Hey, what's your name? We're
Yeah,
not doing that anymore.
yeah,
It's right there. It's accessible. These images, these beautiful women making money, doing their thing. But the problem is there's shame in marriages, shame in relationships, shame in oneself from religious upbringing, maybe, or whatever it is.
yes,
We don't have to go into that. But
yes.
so, what do you recommend people do in these relationships
Yeah.
to accept themselves in forms of communication or whatever? What do you recommend?
Yeah, well, this is so important, what you're referring to there, because, okay, so now it invites us to consider online, the internet, and all of our technologies as what are they? Well, they're assets and they're liabilities,
Mm,
and like so many things, right? And
right.
so I can go there if I'm going there as an expansion, as a way of overcoming shame, as a self exploration, as a couple exploration, as a way of enhancing
Yeah.
our experience, our connection, our sexual lives. Fantastic. Okay.
Right.
However, if I'm going there driven out of shame, where now, for instance, to paint the scenario, well, you know what? I've got certain preferences, kinks, what have you, that I can't discuss with my partner. I'm
Yeah.
ashamed of discussing that. So I'm going to take it over here and bring it to the internet, and I'm gonna hang out over there as a secret.
Right.
Okay, that will do one thing. It'll allow me access to things that I can enjoy. All right,
Yeah.
to different kinds of expressions of my sexuality, but it also risks. I'm going to hide it there, and while I'm out on the internet, I'm really hiding in a hole where I'm going to keep it away from the person I'm involved
Right.
with. So we go both ways on that. One is, hey, it's wonderful and it's
It's the
exchangeable.
intention.
Yes, yes,
That's it. It's
yes,
like yes, we love stimulation. Like certain people are they love situational arousal and things like that. We're an ADD culture, of course we do. So you bring that into the bedroom. Your intention is let's spice it up, baby. Let's learn about doggy style. But
yeah,
if you're going because you're avoiding interactions with people, you're scared of people, that's not a blanket statement. We have our needs, but or you're hiding things from your partner. We're avoiding avoidance, which can
yes,
go down the road of you're ashamed of your identity, which is the root to addiction, is the root to shame and all these things.
yeah,
So what do you recommend for a couple? I've been in a situation. What would you recommend for a couple who, okay, I don't have a problem with adult entertainment, sex workers. I actually support them. But you're not, this isn't in our negotiation, the amount of ratio. That's where I felt there was a trust breach because it felt like a lie. It wasn't that if you were dishonest with me, we negotiate. So what
yeah.
would you recommend to a couple?
Well, you're hitting the key. It is uh the openness and the honesty that is really the solution, the healing aspect. what happens is most commonly what I encounter is that a couple appears in my office, and oh well, there's this cyber infidelity. There's accusations of one partner as being a sex addict, that he's broken trust. All this has happened, and the couple's in crisis and on the brink, and they're coming,
Right.
and, under those circumstances, there's an awful lot of work entailed in healing that, but a key is that sense of overcoming secrecy,
You're
okay, and finding acceptance. Can I present myself fully as a sexual person? Can we have that dialogue and talk about it where I don't have to hide it? I don't have to
right.
just take it to the internet, and as a breach of trust, in effect. And now we can kind of bring that in. So I can't tell you how common that scenario is, where typically it's not discussed up front. We don't have explicit understandings and agreements very easily. We kind of assume, yeah, we're on the same page and we like the same thing, and well, we care for each other, or we've had a few experiences, so things should just fall into place. And that's where the intimate communication comes in. That's so important.
It is. I'm single, so one of the first things I talk about with men, and a lot of females or feminine energy that identify with feminine energy because it's safety driven a lot of times,
Yeah,
doesn't want to bring up sex. It
yeah,
feels too masculine or scary. One of the first things I talk about when I'm qualifying, because that's what I'm doing, I'm getting to know you,
yeah,
and I don't want to waste your time. I don't want
yes,
to waste my time.
yeah,
So, okay, let's see. Sexual compatibility is huge. You
yeah,
may find out your partner is on a adult entertainment site, and
yeah.
she is into X, Y, and Z, and you know that you never will be. And the level of importance of that, if it is important to them, then you may not be sexually compatible, which is way more important to me, at least. I find that very important. It's not, you may not be able to make it work.
I
And
get
it's,
it's so important, so progressive what you're doing early in a relationship,
thank
because
you.
I could tell you that typically that's not been done. And I can't tell you how many couples I've worked with that, gee, their communication about with each other for years, their communication about paying the bills, raising the kids, who's taking out the trash, who's going to take care of mom and dad. They'll talk about some of the most important things in life and do a
Right.
pretty good job about it. When it comes to sex and intimacy, it's, that part is supposed to somehow just fall into place. Okay.
Mm.
And then surprise, later on we discovered that it
Well,
don't, you
and then
know?
he's a dog and she's lame and she's vanilla, he's not. There's so many judgments made at that point. But where's
Yes.
the accountability? You
Yeah.
did not have the conversations in the beginning because it is vulnerable, because of the shame that certain societies put on the word sex. It's like, and what I've noticed, Dr. Peters, when I talk to these gentlemen, the first thing I hear, ladies, listen to this. When I first say it to the man, the stigma is that the guy is going to get all excited and not see you for you. The animal arousal will turn on and the testosterone will take over. I'm getting a shock factor where they're like, wow, thank you for being so direct. Thank you for discussing this with us. It makes me feel very comfortable. At the very least, it's ended, will you still be my friend?
Yes.
Because it's that important. And it has here and there where a guy's gotten super excited. That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's when it won't work if we can't go any further beyond that conversation, and that's okay.
Indeed. Indeed.
But it's very important. And I've
Yeah.
gotten a lot of good feedback from and I'm not trying to put males in a box here. I'm a heterosexual female. So this is my experience. But it's interesting. It's not as scary as I thought it would be. It was in the beginning, and then now it's
Yeah. It's
needed.
introducing the conversation. All right.
Yeah.
And again, not to mislead, it's not a sense of, well, we meet and we're going to have this giant sex conversation
Yeah.
that takes care of it and off we go. It really is more of an opening a door, opening an avenue to be able to say, yeah, we could talk directly about this. We we could communicate verbally and non-verbally and adjust as we go, because how we're feeling about it today may be different than 3 months from now, may be different, very different from a year or 5 years from now, or
That's
how
true.
it's going to go.
Well,
So it's
right.
really opening it up.
It is. It's like, okay, so we used to see pineapples on doorsteps, the hidden swinging crowd, but now it's becoming more mainstream.
Yeah.
If you've noticed that, it's becoming mainstream open relationships. So now it's like, but a lot of these couples never 10 years ago would have thought
Yeah.
that would have been them. And the reality is we do change. We need to check in with each other, right?
Yeah.
Do you
Yes.
suggest
Yes.
that? Because
Yes.
it can change.
Abby, and as you're suggesting today, that we're finding greater acceptance with various models of relationships,
Mm.
beyond the traditional. So just to know that it's okay and it's possible to go in a different direction is freeing for people. Uh, what you want to be careful with, and this is something I've noticed too, is that it's like, everything that's good has a downside. And
Right.
that's that sense of, okay, because we've got this freedom now, and we could say, okay, how about altering the model, or going into a different arrangement. You want to
Yeah.
make sure you're really kind of digging into an understanding of where you are in that relationship, and that we need to, do we need to go that way? Is it a desire to go that way? Or are we just kind of not communicating and not working it out well here? So
Band-Aid.
that's going to be the quick band-aid solution. We'll change the structure. But
Yes.
and sometimes that's really not the best way to go, or premature.
Well, that's the thing. I've been interviewing a lot of couples, and talking to them, and about 80% there's two different stories. And then there is that rare, like one is I'm doing this to please my partner,
Yeah.
the open dynamic,
Yeah.
however that looks. And then it's very rare that I find so far in my journey of discovery, because this is new for me. I live in Georgia, so we probably opened up a lot slower than maybe out west. So, like, what I'm finding is there are couples I find that are on the same page. They have built trust. They have a good foundation. There's an understanding. It's not because one partner's bored or they're not communicating their sexual needs. And what's interesting, there's a show called something about thruples that was on Netflix. I don't know if you get on Netflix,
I
but it
haven't seen.
was it was interesting. Only one out of the whole group of couples that were trying to find a throuple situation worked out. And you could tell it's because the foundation, the trust, the
Mhm.
communication
Yeah,
just wasn't there.
I think it's rarely the solution to something that is not being communicated or not working well in a couple. I think it's better served as a desire. It's better served as a consensus, as an exploration, as a positive intention, rather
Mm.
than this is okay. This is the fix.
Yeah,
All
let's
right.
spice the relationship up. It's like, no, it's never what we think it is. The problem's never the problem.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I agree. The grass is it's like I read this book, I forget which one it was. It always said like I think it was The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F. I can't say it on YouTube. But
Uh,
he said like every situation you go to is a new set of problems.
yeah. Oh yeah.
The grass is truly not greener. You
Yes.
may think this is expanding you in this way or this or that, but you have a new set of lessons, problems, growing.
Yeah, it's there's always an upside and there's always a downside. And you're doing well if you can maximize the upside, be aware of the downside,
Right.
because sometimes there's a price to be paid, and you want to know that the price is affordable.
Thanks for joining the Life in Red today, where we embrace passion, confidence, and positive sexuality. Keep painting your journey in bold red strokes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us so that you never miss out on living your best red life. Ready for more? Stay passionate, stay red. See you next episode.